I'm sure some of you are going to think I'm a little bit nuts this time, but maybe not. Here you see my Singer Stitch So Quick and a piece of fabric that I've just been fiddling around with, a box of bobbins, and these are in black and white threads. And those are the directions, and the longer spool pen, a needle threader, and a needle. So I've made videos before on how convenient these little machines can be. They're battery operated. Some of them come with AC adapters. And, you know, I have PTSD. So I had this, I've been watching MASH because it's about the Korean War that my father was in. And, you know, I keep thinking about a holster, like a gun holster. And I've been talking to people about the NRA and guns and stuff like that. And it all kind of gets mixed up in my head. But I knew I was making sense of it somehow. So I kept thinking of a holster, and I finally got out my, wait for it, AARP bag. When you join the AARP, and they have different bags depending on what year, they often give you a little bag. And this is my holster. It's actually a lunch bag, but it has a nice little outer pocket. It is insulated, although I won't need that, I don't think. But it's the perfect size to keep a Singer Stitch So Quick in. So, what do you think I'm going to do with this? Other than piece quilts, I have a reproduction Civil War quilt coming up where I'm going to actually be putting stars like this, only done a little bit better, on squares before I piece them, and it'll be like a false quilting on the fabric. So I've been fiddling with that. Guess what else this is perfect for? Excuse me. I went to the store early this morning, and the trees are starting to come into bloom. There's crab apples, there's ornamental pears, there PJM rhododendrons. I mean, all these flowers and trees are starting to bloom. And this is landscape design. This is going to replace, believe it or not, my sketchbook. I have years and boxes of field sketchbooks. When you're a botanical illustrator, you go out into the wild, even if you're on a sidewalk, and you sit in the dirt and you draw exactly what a plant looks like. And at times, you may bring a specimen plant home, but of course, it always helps if you have gardening or horticulture knowledge so that you can keep the plant alive when you get it home. I did dig up a tree the other day from around the block because it was going, two trees. The eastern white pine was in the shade, surrounded by very large white oak, and it just never had a chance. So I brought it home, and it's on my porch, and it's doing well. And then I dug up a holly tree because it had sprouted right under my drain spout from the gutter, and the roots were already going into the foundation. So that one never had a chance. So that's now in like a 10-gallon bucket. And holly trees are interesting because I'm not going to know whether it's a male tree or a female tree for 2 to 5 years. And only the female trees produce berries, which are for the birds. So there's so much that you can get lost in any landscape, any suburban landscape. I'm in a very well-developed neighborhood, and there's just millions of things. I was walking the dog, and those beautiful red and white mushrooms are starting to come up out of the pine needles. There's so many things that you can draw. So how do you take that and go from a sketchbook with a watercolor box and pencils to and traditional drawing to stitching them? Well, pretend this is blank, or even pretend this is a street corner or something. Down the street, I have a neighbor down there that I'm really still annoyed with for the past 3 years. She had gorgeous wisteria vines, that were like 15 feet tall, 50 feet wide, just all beautiful wisteria. And one year she brought in a contractor and they cut it all back, and now it's scraggly looking. But if this is a fence, and I have this with me, and I have several colors of thread in here, or I work on white fabric with black thread. So there's the wisteria on the fence. I take out the sewing machine, I stitch it like this, and then with some kind of like a Pigma permanent marker, or sometimes even graphite, write on the back the day and the location. In other words, you can take landscape design completely from drawing. Now, graphite isn't toxic. Watercolor isn't really either, unless you're in the professional level watercolors. But then you're carrying a lot more than just a sewing machine. It's just something to think about. I know that sometimes I get off on a tangent with a new way of doing things, but I'm also still packing, and I cleaned out part of the linen closet the other day. And I have like 10 pillowcases that are kind of scummy looking, and I don't quite want to throw them away. They would be excellent paper for landscape design. I could either cut them up, it's that 120 thread count of cotton. I could either cut them into smaller sheets, because the stitch so quick only has a 3-inch throat. But I could make 5x7 pieces of, quote, paper and take them with me and be doing sketches on fabric. So then, because I do quilting, then you piece the fabric together, you could do your whole neighborhood. And you could do all different thread colors. I have about 70 different colors of thread right now. I could wind bobbins, take this with me, and this type of a machine, it's very easy to pop one bobbin off and put another one on. The other thing you could do is the handheld, the vintage Sun handhelds that aren't battery operated are maybe easier, but I happen to like this one right now. And landscape design. And I just think that if we get a little bit away from all the toxic chemicals, we'll also open up our thinking into more natural fibers. And what do the plants mean, and how important are they with our environment? I mean, so a holly tree, for example, on the way back from the store, my other neighbors have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 holly trees in their yard. That's probably where the seedling came from that ended up near my foundation. But why are they important? Well, they're important in the Northeast for birds and wildlife. And we also have bittersweet vines here, and that can be like a weed and kill anything in your yard. But why are they important? So by using natural fibers and thread and cotton, you can take landscape design to a more intellectual level. When you go through a landscape design class, there are specific shapes for trees, or like basically you're just doing similar to the flower foot that I have for my Model 237 and other machines. You're making outlines of flowers, and the size and sometimes the color will tell you what you're drawing. And again, depending on the fabric you use, if this was a pillowcase piece, I could be writing with a pencil on the back, PJM rhododendron, 2 miles south of the traffic light, and it's a sketchbook that you can then make into a quilt.